This is a quick video to explain how to use the Orton effect in Photoshop. Michael Orton was a photographer who developed this technique in the 1980s using slide film, where he took two different slides and mounted them in the same slide mount to have one that was sharp and have one that was blurred. But it's much easier with technology to recreate this effect in Photoshop. So here I've opened a picture I took a couple of years ago in Failbrig down by the lake. I've converted it to black and white already, and I have just one layer open at the moment. So what I'm going to do is create a new layer. So I'm going to go to Layer and Duplicate Layer. So background copy, okay. And now over in my Layers panel, you see I've got a background and a background copy. So with the background copy highlighted, I'm now going to go to Filter and scroll about halfway down to Blur, and then about halfway down the new drop down box is Gaussian Blur. So as you can see, the whole thing has gone rather unsharp now, and you can adjust the amount of unsharpness by altering the radius of the pixels that it affects. So I'd suggest that you want somewhere in the region of maybe 50 pixels radius. Any more really, I mean you can have more, but it might be a little too exaggerated, so I'm going to go with around 60 and click OK. The simplest way you can look at this is now by just having the blurred copy layer on top of the background sharp layer, is just alter the opacity. So click on the opacity slider on the layers panel and just turn down the opacity until you get an effect that you like the look of. Now I think I'm going to go for somewhere in the middle, around about 50%. So that's kind of given it a bit of a bloom. I don't know if you've ever used old lenses that weren't particularly well coated, but they give this kind of strange bloom when you're looking into the light. And that's sort of what this is doing here. I think this could do a little bit further adjustment, so I'm going to go down to my adjustment layers and add a levels adjustment layer and click on that. And up here, hang on, where's my, oh there it is, hiding underneath the Nick panel. Yeah, so I'm going to increase the contrast a bit by altering the sliders on the adjustment layer. Probably just darken it down a bit. I'll pull the right hand one in a bit to brighten up the highlights, and pull the left hand one down a bit to darken the shadows. And you can just adjust that until you think it gives you the right amount of contrast that you're looking for. Then if you want, you can go back to the background copy and alter the opacity again to see if that's changed now that you've altered the levels. Just tweak it until you get the effect that you want. So I quite like that. I think if I switch both these extra layers off, you can see what the original looked like. So if I switch the Gaussian blur layer back on, you can see that, and then if I switch the levels adjustment layer back on, you can see that that's affected that a little bit too. The other way you can do this is if I just get rid of my extra layers and then do a different way of working. So I just got back to my background layer, my original layer again. So I'm just going to introduce the same duplicate layer as before, and the same Gaussian blur as before. And instead of using the opacity slider, I'm going to look at my the different ways of what are they called? The you're going to have to bear with me here. I can't remember what these are called, but the blending modes. Sorry, having a senior moment. So I think I actually quite like multiply. I think multiply is quite nice. Some of them, some of them work better than others, I'd say. I think probably soft light is quite nice. Overlay's okay. And some of them are just a bit wacky. I'm going to go back to multiply, and then I'm going to play with the opacity slider a bit again. And then perhaps I shall introduce another levels adjustment layer and just play around a little bit with the contrast. So that's all there is to it, really. The Orton effect is just produced by adding a layer of blur. Doesn't even have to be Gaussian blur. You could play around with the different blurs. I think that's probably the best one to go for, but it might be fun to try the different blurs and see how they affect the effect. So again, just create a background copy of your image. On that background copy, add a blur filter, and then play around either the blending modes, remedy this time, or the opacity slider. And then you can add a contrast levels or curves layer just to play around with the final effect. Hope that makes sense. Thanks for watching.